Welcome to Purple Coach Conversations with Anne and Tanya, myself. Our goal is to normalize, educate, and inspire conversations around diversity and inclusion. We are both coaches, mothers, and entrepreneurs, and it's important to say that we're not diversity experts, but we aim to have conversations with people that will have something interesting and unique to say about their journey and experiences in diversity and inclusion.
So today we have two sisters with us. We have Irene and Victoria. So Victoria lives in London. She has quite a few degrees. One of her main ones is in biochemistry and pharmacology. And she also has an MBA from London Business School. She's a consultant, a business developer, and in the corporate world. And she's also a mother of two children, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Irene lives in Lund in Sweden. She has a master's in international study and diplomacy and a bachelor's in political science and psychology. She was also a former professional basketball player for the Swedish national team and is now working for the Swedish Basketball Federation, managing a few projects. I'll pass it on to Victoria and Irene now to introduce themselves, and we can get to know them a little bit better. So Victoria, would you like to start, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having us. I'm very privileged to be part of this conversation, and I kind of jumped on board on this opportunity because of our very multicultural background. So as Anne introduced, I live in London. I've been here for 20 odd years, a very long time now. My journey, like Irene's, is we were born in Moscow to a Russian mother and a Nigerian father. So we are, as people say, is biracial. But on top of that, we grew up in Sweden. So our culture and our upbringing is Scandinavian and Swedish as such. So we have that multicultural dimension. And on top of that, I moved to London to study and ended up staying here because like my career took off. And I love the city, quite frankly. And then I ended up doing a number of strategic roles in the corporate setting, working for healthcare, Reuters. And at present, my passion and sort of background is leading me into something I'm coining as social impact and entrepreneurship. So I'm very passionate about businesses that want to improve the world. I'm supporting a number of entrepreneurs and doing small investments in that space. And I have two boys, two hectic young boys, so it's keeping me busy. That's me.
Thank you.
Irene?
Should I go next? Okay. I jumped on this little project or this conversation because my sister told me to. Basically, whatever she says.
Thank you, Victoria.
No, but the thing is, I'm actually quite interested and quite passionate about this subject matter, and so to veer off from what Victoria just told you guys about our background. She went to London to study. I went to the US. I got a scholarship, a full scholarship to a Division I college in the US to play basketball. And I've done that most of my life, played basketball on the elite level in Sweden. Of course, education goes hand in hand. And after that, I went for a little while in London and did my master's and then returned back and continue to work within the field of sports as of right now anyway. And right now I am an assistant basketball coach at the highest level on the women's level. And also a project manager for a project called Hemmaplan, which means your court on at home. Your home court, so to say, and it's an initiative started by the Southern Swedish Basketball Federation to introduce more sports and sports in socioeconomically challenged areas and bring small businesses together and sort of create some kind of youth development and social entrepreneurship. So yeah.
What an impressive background, the two of you, and the things you're working on. It's incredible. Honestly, thank you for being with us and for sharing that with us. And we want to hear about your upbringing as well in Sweden and understand, because you currently live in Lund, but I understand that you've been moving in Sweden, especially you, Irene, but to get a bit your perspective of your upbringing and how it was to be raised by biracial family.
I mean, I can say 2 cents about it. So at home, we had an extremely open-minded culture, because that's what happens when you have parents from different colors, different cultures also. So I would say for me, very much growing up, I didn't see color. If anything, as an immigrant child and as a child of parents with 2 different cultures, you're spending a lot of time bridging a lot of the misunderstandings your parents have. So you create a lot of skills in explaining to themselves even what they mean. So I would say at home, from a home perspective, we were very open-minded, and it translated very much into the friends we made. I made friends from all sorts of cultures, and Lund was a perfect city to facilitate that, because it is very multicultural because of its university and its business makeup. You have a lot of engineering and pharmaceutical and sort of big businesses there that bring people together from all over the world. So in some ways, that was one feature. And I'd say for me personally, wherever I went, I always got the question, where are you from? What are you? People really trying to figure out, what your background is, having that need to try to profile you. So it just became a part of my identity. I'm expecting that question. It's something I grew up with no matter where I went. And I took that as an opportunity to engage with people and maybe explain to them, yes, you can be Russian, and yes, you can be Black, and I am both of these things. And they're always trying to say, but which one do you feel like most? Are you, do you feel Nigerian? Do you feel Russian? And what do you mean you're Black? Are you Black? Yeah, you are. Now I see it. It sort of became a thing for me in any case. So I don't know, Irene, what your take on and what you have to add?
Well, I think it's important to note that we grew up in an area that's extremely diverse as well. Even in Lund, Lund is an international city, like Victoria said, due to the university, its tech businesses. It's a business hub in Lund. But also, we grew up in an area in Lund which is extremely immigrant populated. Many different cultures, especially the waves of immigration that came in the 70s and 80s, 70s maybe from the South America, and the 80s from the Middle East. So it's important to know that although we're a biracial family, I think one of the first identities you have is as an immigrant, like you're part of this larger group of people of color, so to say, or international people. So I think that's one identity, maybe both. I don't know about you, but I think both of us sort of maybe identified with growing up. So it was not just being Russian or Black. You're part of this larger group, umbrella group of sort of new immigrants, At home, I did see color. I was very aware of the differences between the 2 cultures in the household, and they're very different cultures as well. You have Nigerian, African, sub-Saharan sort of culture, and then you have Russian. Not only Russian, my mom grew up in Siberia, like it's the most Russian part of the former Soviet Union. That's that kind of culture that existed in the house. And me, I was very aware of like our differences, of our different shades of color, not negating one over the other, like not identifying with one more than the other. It's just I was very aware, like dad looks like this, talks like this, likes this kind of food, this kind of music, and mom has this other side to her and looks like this, and somewhere in between are we, the 2 of us, and we're also slightly different as well. So yeah, I grew up identifying as what I see in the mirror, and what I see is a person of color or a Black person, but also Russian and Nigerian, and this bigger umbrella of the new Swede, so to say, the immigrant Swede. Yeah.
And where conversations, it's fascinating how you talk about you were raised in the same house, etc. But somehow, Victoria was not seeing color, whereas you, Irene, you were. Were you talking about that difference, or was it just it wasn't needed to talk about it? It was just in your mind, and you were growing up. As you said, there was no negative around this. There was no like superior inferiority kind of feeling. It was just there, and you were just, it was just acceptance of how things were.
I mean, in our household, that was the norm. There was nothing strange about it. In my head was, well, everybody's family is like that. Everybody's mixed. Like, I mean, that was the norm. So I didn't think that, oh, okay, maybe not everybody is like that. Like, maybe that's not the norm in everybody's household. So no, we didn't talk about race or colorism or color, because this was the norm in my head. Like, oh, everybody has a Black uncle or a Black mom or something, or a Serbian dad or a Latino, whatever. So and that's the area we grew up in as well. Like that becomes so normal until you step out of this little bubble and you see how the rest of the world actually functions or looks like, and it's not like that. It's much more segregated. But no, we didn't talk about that. We had I think a very liberal family, and the discussions were more history, politics, science. You could talk about anything, but that was not necessarily a subject matter, because it was like I said, the norm. You don't talk about what the norm is, you talk about the outliers. But in society, we are the outliers, but not in our family.
But it's interesting, as we've grown up, now as adults, we have started to talk about race and our experiences more, because we have realized that, I've been surprised about maybe when Irene has shared that, actually, there's loads of racism in Sweden. And I'm like, okay, I know it exists, but I have not seen it in the same way as she may have seen it. And in that journey, in those conversations today, maybe I have understood that just by maybe being lighter, I may have been shielded from a certain level. I may, I can't say I have never been profiled, or people have maybe sidelined you, but I have never been necessarily called a specific name for being Black. So therefore, in my head, I may have downplayed or not understood how much and how widespread it is. So I think in terms of race and color, we talk about it more as adults, as opposed to when we grew up, it wasn't something we talked about because it didn't really feature. So now we talk about it more in a perspective of where the world is and what we have seen and faced as adults.
It's a very interesting point as well, and I was just coming to that point, Victoria, about colorism. And the lighter skin you are, the more white you look, the more you get that card of a pass for the racial discrimination. And the more darker features you have, the more you're more likely to get profiled negatively if when it comes to things about racism, basically. And I'm not saying in general everyone does it. Just from your perspective, Irene, as well, I know when we spoke previously, you mentioned, and Victoria has brought that up, you mentioned that you saw racism more than Victoria did, and perhaps you also experienced it more. And then...
Sorry, go ahead.
And Victoria, you mentioned, just as you've mentioned now, that it's not something that you saw on a regular basis or something that you really experienced based on more of your lighter skin and features that look more white than Black. And you shared as well that you came to learn more about what Irene went through as a grown-up. Just talk us a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about that. Perhaps Irene, you can go first about your experience around this.
I think as a child, I look at her and I feel like I can see the differences, but then again, I was like, I didn't notice that we were that different, you know. Yeah, maybe I'm slightly darker a little bit. I wear my hair quite natural or in some kind of braids. But I think somewhere I just assumed that my experiences were the same as hers. And so there was no need for any deeper conversation. I was like, all right, well, this happened to me. This has for sure happened to her. So there's no significance in actually talking that much about it. But yeah, I mean, talking later as adults, I'm realizing how different our experiences were. Whereas I've been approached and asked why I look dirty, why I don't shower. I've been called a monkey and a Negro, and you know, all the slurs underneath the sun, so to say, and randomly, you know, what do you call, checked at the airport every single time, like clockwork, even if I travel from the same place once a month, every month, the same day. It's like clockwork, coming off the boats, even as an athlete, wearing the same gear with the national flag, walking in the group, you would be selected out of the group to be, you know, checked for your ID or your passport or whatever. But I somewhere maybe I assumed we had the same experiences, and I mean, you react to it and it affects you, but you don't feel somehow unique until you start to realize, you know what, it's actually quite unique and you stand out.
And this is the same feeling I had growing up, thinking, well, you know, I mean, yeah, fine, we're a few shades apart, but we even sound similar. I also assumed, you know, Irene got pretty much the same treatment as me. We're immigrants, and it's up to you to be nice or work harder, do whatever it is you need to do. So I also assumed we are treated the same, sort of mixed race, doing our thing. So I think that's what children are. You know, you are ignorant to a lot of the codes and stuff. You just go with your emotions and feelings, and you just assume from your own point of view. And as we've grown up, obviously it saddens me to hear a lot of the stuff, but it also made me understand how ignorant I was. And even in the same house, having a Black dad, I know he had, you know, people saying XYZ, but you can never really identify unless you have walked in those shoes or made it your business to really dig deeper, to hear the stories, to really understand. And I mean, this proves to, I think, to me, and then should prove to a lot of people, that you really don't know what you don't know, because we're in the same house, seeing each other on a daily basis, yet you don't know what the other person goes through until you ask and have that really candid, detailed conversation to find out. Until that point, all you can do is assume from your own reference point.
And now I think
sorry, go on.
Go for it.
I think that's such a powerful point that you've made there, Victoria, is, you know, that until you sit down and listen to somebody else's point of view, your assumptions will only go so far into understanding issues that is facing a lot of the Black community, but not even just Black community, people of color. If you talk about, you know, women, if you want to understand someone's issue or someone's how they're being discriminated or any kind of injustice, you know, just having those kind of conversations with them on a candid level and really trying to understand what they go through. You can't really live that experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really interesting example. Very recently, I saw in the news Priti Patel. She's the Secretary of State for the Home Department here in the UK. I don't know if you're aware of her. She came out quite vocal in the media and said that she does not support Black Lives Matters or even the peaceful sort of going down on one knee with the hand up part. And it angered me, but at the same time, you know, I felt something that I understood and I resonated with. You know, if you have been privileged, and I say privilege can come in so many shades today, privileged to not maybe have felt or have seen another type of persons or this in this scenario, a race or ethnic group's pain, you cannot associate it with, you become desensitized. So her opinion is very valid. It might be that she has gone through life as a very privileged lady of Indian background. She may not have dug deep enough into the African-American pain and injustice that they're going through, and therefore she cannot understand why the protest is happening and so on. So for me, it was such a clear example of, this is what I experienced, that slight privilege of not maybe seeing the everyday racism in Sweden, and then me assuming that it's not as bad as it is. And these are examples of, for me, it was a clear-cut example. She's speaking very, very firmly about, I don't agree with the people protesting on Black Lives Matter. Okay, has she dug deeper? Has she seen the pain? Has she been on the ground? Probably not. So, you know, I had to make a comment on LinkedIn about it.
That's so interesting what you're bringing up. And I've noticed also, since we've started Purple Coach Conversations, I had very interesting conversations with teachers, Black teachers, etc. And one of them preferred not to be part of the project as well. Not just because it might be a combination of things, but she just, I felt a little bit of that she kind of was happy with the current situation she was in, and she didn't want to voice things, that she understands certain things can't change, and I was a bit saddened to hear that. I was sharing that with Anne, and you were telling me, Anne, how, you know, some people just have abandoned fighting for this, and they prefer not to say anything. I don't know what you think of that, Irene.
I think it's scary. I think it's scary to dig underneath your own lack of knowledge, your own lack of participation, to question your own views. Like, you can go with the status quo and just move forward and live your life to the best of your ability, but to question your own values, your own views, where do my values come from? Why is my friends group actually not that diverse? Why do I only hang out with a certain socioeconomical strata, maybe? Like, all these questions actually are a bit scary, and you start to notice that even as a person from a minority group, you might have bigoted views yourself. Like, it does not preclude you from having some kind of ideas onto others as well, that's outside of your immediate group or whatever. And you actually have to start thinking, but where do those views come from? Do I actually think like that? Why do I think like that? How did I grow up? What is the discussion that goes on in my own family? Do I have two parents of two different backgrounds? Does my mom actually say a few things that are actually somewhat, ignorant to Black people's reality? Or do, you can have African or Black background that have also bigoted views against others. It's comfortable to be where you are. It's not comfortable to actually scratch underneath the surface, because then you're left with, do I do something about it or not? And most of us don't want to do anything about it, or don't have the time or the will. We don't want to complicate our lives. It's complicated to fight for injustice. It's complicated to read more than what we want to read. Maybe I want to go home and read fiction and make myself feel good, or do I want to go home and read something that actually expands my my knowledge and my my view of the world? Let me understand somebody else. It is actual work. And most of us are comfortable where we are, especially if we're privileged, especially if we don't have to worry about how we pay for the next meal. We don't live paycheck to paycheck. We don't have a diverse group of friends. Then we don't have to understand what happens to minorities. We don't have to understand what happens to, the Israel-Palestine conflict. We don't have to understand this history because we're comfortable where we are.
Yeah, I think what was also, and that's something, Anne, you've experienced, I think, in your surrounding, someone that you don't work directly with, but that is part of a group who doesn't necessarily want to talk about Black Lives Matters during, the meetings, etc. I don't know if you see the person I'm talking about, and then this teacher in particular who she's congratulated us for the initiative, but she doesn't necessarily want to be part of it because she feels uncomfortable with the status that she's created, with her being a minority, etc. The fear of voicing certain things because it might offend maybe other white people, and that's kind of the feeling I had. I don't know, Anne, if you want to add to that.
I understand where everyone is coming from, and I understand the feeling of discomfort. I understand the feeling of not wanting to challenge the status quo, challenge or cause an ease or whatever it is that comes up for a lot of people when you start talking about racism and white privilege and things like that, like really difficult topics. But I have to say, I'm a bit more on the why don't you get off your comfort zone? I think that's, for me, is I'm more of that stance, is like, yes, it is uncomfortable. Imagine how uncomfortable it is for other people who actually have to experience the discomfort of the racism, the other people who have to experience the discomfort of the prejudice, of the insults, of the violence, the shootings, of the inability to get a job just because of your color. How uncomfortable is that for them? And I just feel as well, like, sometimes if we all sat with what just feels comfortable, where would we be as women? If we didn't stand up and say, actually, this is not acceptable to pay us, a tiny fraction of what men are getting, or to treat us in a sexist manner and think it's still okay. If you look at the 50s, look at how far we have come. There's obviously still more to be done in terms of, women's rights. But I mean, if we all just sat and said, well, it's a bit uncomfortable to have these conversations with men, where would we be? And I feel it's about the same, or with homosexuality as well. How, if we all just sat and say, no, I don't really want to talk about gay rights because I have this really religious people in my family, and I don't want to rock the boat during, and make things uneasy during conversations, where would their rights be? And I just feel like it's the same when it comes to racism. Like, we need to actively speak up, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you feel speaking about it, because that's how change occurs.
Yeah, but I can understand the frustration also of Black people that don't want to be doing the work of educating, others. And it's a little bit what I felt with that particular teacher, who was like, okay, I just want to see what you're doing, because at the end, great, but I want to see, I want to understand. Do you want to talk to me just to get information, or is this something that is going to lead us somewhere? And I can understand, I think there's a difference here between the status quo and the frustration that you might be experiencing sometimes, and being fed up of the situation.
It is, in my opinion, it is a big ask to require the Black diaspora, the African diaspora, people of color, to actually do the work. Those are the people who live this every single day. You might go to the store in the morning, somebody looks at you, you might get a comment, sometime during the day. You go to the bank, you might not get the loan, you put in an application that doesn't, you're overqualified, or your English is not perfect, or by the time a woke, privileged white person comes with a good idea, they're like, listen, I'm done. What do you want to do? Like, I've done this already. I've lived this already. You do something. You show me what, you do the work. I can understand it's a big ask, to be honest. And I think people are not comfortable. I think no matter what, minorities and people who have suffered always stand up and speak. That's why we had the women's liberation. That's why we've had, civil rights movement in the US, I mean, people don't stay quiet. I mean, people talk, and that's why we are where we are today. This conversation didn't happen in the 90s. There's no way we could have had this kind of conversation in the 90s and look where we are today, because people do not they do not sit back and do nothing. More and more people get involved, and I think with social media, the internet, globalization, we're bringing everybody's suffering closer and closer to us, and so you cannot avoid it anymore. You cannot avoid this conversation anymore.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look at this. I mean, this in some ways was sparked a little bit by George Floyd's death in you, Tanya. So it's like the media bringing that reality to just someone like you sitting in London. It's like it resonates, you know? And I'd say, and if we have the guts to do something with that energy, you add to the improvement and the advancement, or you can let the buck stop at you and you kind of internalize it and move on. So you have that choice personally to see what you can do. I have never been huge on taking part of the marches or, you know, being as vocal, maybe because I haven't been as close to the topic, but even George Floyd touched me. So I went on Facebook and I said, okay, now I want my friends to know I'm backing the Black community. I need to do my piece. I went up, wrote a really good message about how can't believe it's happening in our times today, that people are still dying at the hands of police for this and that reason. And then I put a hashtag all lives matter. And guess what? This was the first time I got checked and corrected by my sister, who's closer to this, who has been living in the States, who understands this movement more. She messaged me and she's like, you have to take that strap line out or correct it somehow. And I said, why? I'm doing my piece. I'm getting involved. You know, empathize with me. I'm doing something here. She said, actually, that statement right now takes away from the Black Lives Matter conversation when you add it. And I couldn't understand it. I'm like, yes, of course, Black Lives Matters. Like everybody, they should be the same. But because of the history in the States, it has been misused. That slogan or hashtag has been misused to take away limelight from Black Lives Matter. She had to educate me. I was angry to be checked by my little sister, but actually, I am grateful today that she brought it to my attention. I had to dump my ego and my Mrs. Know-it-all mentality and actually say, you know what, I may not understand how that statement might take away because I ultimately believe in that, but in this moment, it is about Black Lives Matter. Let's live that, and then you build on that to the next topic and the next topic. So I corrected it. But this is an example of, you know, you can start wherever you start, but then be open-minded enough to hear people out who are closer to it, who know more, or who have lived it. So, you know, that's been my learning and my journey in this. And thanks for checking me on that point.
I didn't try to check her. I was trying to figure out, like, what does she mean? Does she know what it means? And let me just make sure, like, hey, you know, before you post this, like, you know, just find out what all lives matter is used for right now, you know. And I mean, we're all, of course, all lives matter. I mean, what kind of statement is that? Of course, all lives matter, but that's not what we're talking about right now, okay? That's not what the issue is about right now.
Irene, that actually brings me to one of a question that I had for you. You moved to the US on a full athletic scholarship for Division I basketball, and you got to live. Oh, this is North Carolina, and tell us a little bit about that, your experience there.
I mean, it's a fascinating, I mean, the US is fascinating to me, first of all, but North Carolina in particular, which is, I mean, it has you know, one of the largest Black populations in the US, like if we're looking at states. And I mean, I was in a city, Greensboro, North Carolina, that has historically like a rich history in the civil rights movement as well. But also the college I went to was almost 30% African American demography and surrounded by a lot of HBCUs, like historically Black colleges. So you cannot avoid being in contact with African American culture, which of course, you know, is unique in itself. And in the US, it is a lot about race. It's not so much about ethnicity, because most people don't know what their ethnic background is. As a Black American, you do not know if you're Igbo, Yoruba, or anything else. You don't know that kind of history. You know, you're Black, and that's it. And it becomes, you know, I don't like that word race, because it's not a race, it's a skin color we're actually talking about. And you become more aware of, especially if you look like me, obviously not speaking, not saying anything about my background, where I'm from or where I grew up. You look at me, I look like a Black American. And that's what you're automatically accepted as. And of course, then you have to explain, I'm Swedish, I'm Russian, I'm Nigerian, yada, yada, you know. But you all of a sudden start to think of yourself as, oh, am I, you know, my identity was, you know, Nigerian, you know, color, a person of color, Russian, Swedish, immigrant, but never necessarily Black as a race. Your race is Black, your color is Black. And in that sense, first I was like, no, what are we talking about? Yes, I'm a person of color, but I'm not like, that's not my race, I'm the human race, all lives matter, you know. But then you start to actually understand the history of Black Americans, but also the connection of Black experiences everywhere in the world. There is a Black minority in India that has always been there. There is a Black or African subculture in Sweden. We're also different countries, different ethnicities, but we're Black somehow. And then there's a certain pride grows in you to understand that these Africans from Africa went through slavery, broke out of slavery, fought for their rights, so that I today can go and study at Stanford or, you know, University of North Carolina. I mean, this would not be possible without the Black struggle in the US. So, I mean, there's a connection and familiarity. Now it doesn't even roll off my tongue anymore. And, you know, you take pride in being sort of connected to this somehow. And then you become more interested. What can I do? How can I be a part of it? How can I contribute? How can I become more aware? What's the history? How does it link to myself? You know, we are all connected. Doesn't matter if you're Nigerian and Sweden, or from Cameroon and France, or Black in the US. We're all linked together. And when you see something like that happen to George Floyd, I mean, this could be you in any country. Literally could be you in any country. And it's impossible to avoid it. It's impossible.
It's very interesting. I think when you talk about how you just identified as Black, and all these other factors of Russian and Nigerian and Swedish and all of that is just stripped away when you're in the US, and you just have one identity, and it's Black. And I think there's a lot of
the funny part, only like having been in the US for about 1 month or something, you know, somehow I felt more at home, more comfortable as myself and my own skin than 20 something years in Sweden. You stand out so much in your own home country. And you know, people around you sort of let you know you're not Swedish, you don't look Swedish. I mean, someone the other day told me I speak broken Swedish. There's no way I speak broken Swedish. Maybe I have a certain intonation because of the area I grew up with, but there's nothing broken about the language I speak. It's my first language, it's my home language, you understand? But in the US, which is highly multicultural, you strip away ethnicity and all that stuff, you become one of them.
It's so interesting to say that, because I can completely identify with what you're saying, you know, as well. I grew up and I spent my teenage years in Sweden, as well as only part of my childhood. And I can completely identify with that feeling of when I'm in Sweden, there's something that I'm more conscious about my Blackness there than I am in London. Like when I'm back in London, as much as I face a lot of racism in London, there is still something being around a group of so many other Black people. You don't feel like you're either sticking out or you're the odd one out. And there's always this question in Sweden as well, where you from, where you from? People don't really ask you that in the UK unless there's an actual genuine reason that they want to know where you are from. It's not more of like, I'm trying to make you feel foreign and I'm going to ask you where you're from because you are definitely not Swedish. You know, and that's the feeling I get when I ask that question in Sweden, where you're from. And it's a feeling of belonging when you around people that look like you, and rightfully or wrongfully so, but it is true.
It's a different comfort level. It's a different sense of security. Like you're less scared. You understand that question of where you're from is actually quite a loaded
Yes.
question.
It's funny.
It's fun when it's curiosity. Like it's you're open to curiosity because we all see our differences. You know, I look at Tanya and I can see, hey, I mean, where are you from? Like it's a nice, like, I'm curious. Like, is it what culture, what food? Like it's a happy question, you know, it's an open question. But you know, you can never forget that question posed to a minority can also be like to make sure to let you know you're not Swedish, where you from, because you're not from here. I can see you're not from here. And that, you know, and you can never forget, depending on who asks that question, it could be curiosity or actually letting you know
it's funny because I understand what you guys are saying, but I can't say I have lived that where I have identified with a group. I don't think I have ever had that in my life. And I have almost gone through and accepted that, you know, I feel part of Black community and I feel part of Russian community, but I have never felt fully, maybe I haven't gone through that journey in the States where it's been enough and I've been included in a group, but I have gone through life not having a group. And I've accepted in many ways that I will not have a group, because when I have gone, and I've tried to explain to Irene, I've spent more time in Nigeria because I'm married to a Nigerian and I've traveled there a lot. I'm not necessarily accepted. I get asked all the time where I'm from by my own people. I get sidelined and put into the immigrant queue in Nigerian airport, even though I'm showing them my green passport. I'm like, hey, stop asking for money from me. I'm, you know, I have to use my broken Nigerian Oga. Put me through, like, you know, I have to tell them, I know, like, don't ask me for the white people tax. Here, you see my ticket, let me in. And I haven't been accepted. And I get equally the same treatment everywhere. So therefore, you know, in some ways, it's like, for me, maybe I have a different dimension and a different journey, but I haven't necessarily felt that I need, not to say that I haven't had it. So therefore, my framework in life is I'm not gonna have it. So it's all about, when I meet people, it's only about who are you, what's your soul, what are you bringing to the table, can I learn something from you? I have not been able to use any other dimensions so far. And if anything, I said to Irene, my biggest shock has been how I've not been included in my African community as much as I thought I would have been. I've been actually quite rejected and treated and sidelined from that side, which I never thought was going to be possible. And that's been from Nigerians in their setup. And even in a business meeting, it's been sort of, oh, you're a white person looking to come and see what you can exploit. And I'm like, listen, I have relatives. I want to do something. I want to, you know, it's been suspicious. I've been surprised by that. I was taken back by it. So my feeling in Sweden is, yes, I get the curiosity question, but I'm not expecting to be part of the Swedish you know, people, because our backgrounds are different. I just want to enjoy our time right now in the way we can, because I don't have 10 generations of Scandinavian. Equally so, the Russians I speak to, we can connect on a certain point, but we cannot connect on all points because I have this other dimension. So for me, it's been a challenge in some ways that I feel like maybe I haven't been included in a group because there's not many of us really.
Here's the difference. You don't live in Sweden. When you
No,
live,
I don't
you
live in
work
Sweden.
in Sweden, you don't want to be like I don't feel like, oh, let me be included 10 generations down. No, I'm here. I represent this country. I work here. I am Swedish. And whether you like it or not, due to globalization and everybody mixing, this is how Sweden looks like me. You know, this is how the new Sweden is.
It's true.
The trajectory of all countries.
Yeah.
And I'm not less Swedish because my ethnic background is different. There's a difference in ethnicity and citizenship. I am a Swedish citizen. I need to have the same access to opportunity as everybody else, regardless of how I look. I mean, if I'm qualified, I apply for the same things. I want to see myself be represented in all facets of Swedish society.
Yeah,
that's my ambition. And
equality. Being different, being the same, but being equal is kind of the thing. And I'm just conscious of I'm sure the audience understands why you're here, because it's so fascinating and you have so many interesting things to bring and unique things to bring to our purple coach table. And I just wanted to finish off, because I think the way we've brought up the conversation today is a very chronological order, and I'm sure the audience understands why, because it's a whole evolution of thoughts and a whole evolution of understanding oneself. And I loved so much, because at the end of the day, I don't think the question is being part of a group or not, but it's feeling oneself, and how Irene, you have felt yourself in the US, because there was no taboo. Things are the way they are, you say black, you say white, it's okay. Whereas in Europe, I think we are behind in the vocabulary, just with the vocabulary thing, to be able to say, I see you, you're different. Again, you're different, we're the same, we're equal, kind of thing. And that's what we're trying to do here in this conversation. But I'm very interested at the very 2020, 21, Victoria is a mom of 2 boys. I just want to understand, has there been any change, since you're a mom as well, from the perspective of colorblind, would you give a tip to your parents if you could? I know when I say that to my mom, she tells me, I can't be perfect all the time, you can't say that, etc. But what tip would you give? Would you have given?
So firstly, to say, when my sons are black, my husband is a Nigerian Brit, so I have for the first time really lived the racist experience and existence, because my 4-year-old has been asked, why is your skin color brown? I've been advised to look for more open schools. So it's really hit home what it looks like, what it feels like, and the extent. So my hope for them and for their future is that we're going to be in a more equipped and in a more equal society by the time they grow up. I'm personally trying to get more open-minded and educate myself and understand more. And wherever I can, I'm going to try to educate people around me, especially, I would say, friends of privilege who may not see. I have many friends who say racism is over. So my little 2 cents is, I'm going to try to get people out of the discomfort zone in a charming way, to at least get them onto the journey. That's going to be my contribution, around my own community to improve, hopefully the future for them.
Yeah, maybe I'm for me, I think my efforts going forward is not necessarily try to educate the people around me, but more so to try to create opportunities, for kids that look like me, identify identify with me, so to say. I work in areas where I see that the need for representation is crucial. Like they need to see somebody that looks like them being able to succeed, and to give them a little bit of hope and say, hey, there is space, there is opportunity, there is a different way of life, there is more. And so right now that's where my effort is, not necessarily making it easier for people of privilege or comfort, but to actually create spaces where kids don't have to grow up with thinking that there's nobody like me. Like when I grew up, there was no athlete that looked like me that I looked up to. Nobody. The first time was in an English school book, and I saw Gail Devers in my English book, and I was like, that's who I want to be like. But looking up, there was nobody. And I want kids to, in Sweden, in these areas, to have to see themselves represented. And it's better today than it was in the 90s.
So go on, Victoria.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I don't always think about it as a black and white thing, but a part of the equality and that sort of effort is part of why I've decided to support entrepreneurs. Because actually some of the businesses that I decided to back are in West Africa, because I saw it more in a capital perspective, that startups, there's a lot of bright tech startups that have zero access to funds in Africa. So my vision, but this is not on a personal level, it's more giving them opportunities to start and become the next Googles, the next whatever over there, because they don't have the angels, hey, let me call a mom's friend to get 20, 30, 50,000 into their business. But I've never thought about it as a black and white thing. I've thought about it as a way to balance the inequalities that I'm seeing from an entrepreneurial and a business perspective, and the poverty I see over there. Whereas when I look at the pure talent, it's the same, if not even more, out there.
I think that's, I could honestly, and I know Tanya feels the same, speak to you both forever, but I'm just conscious of the time. And I think that's an absolutely amazing way to actually finish the conversation today. Just hearing the kind of impact that you're both making, Victoria from an entrepreneurial perspective, and Irene as well, like looking at how are you changing the minds of young people to seek for more, and, a role model. And it's so important. And, both of the work that you're doing is absolutely amazing. I'd love for you to be able to share with our guests today how they can follow you and how they can connect with you. So if you'd like to go, Victoria.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You'll find me under Victoria Otamiri. I'd love to chat. If you want to talk about this topic or connect on business opportunities or social impact, reach me there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. You find me under Irene Otamiri. You're more than welcome to get in touch with me, ask me about how we start these kind of projects in different areas, the model, or just to have a chat. Check out our program as well. It's all in Swedish, unfortunately, for now, but it's called hemmaplan.org. So HEMMAPLAN.org.
Brilliant. And we'll put all the details as well, the links to what you've shared with us at the end of the video, or with the videos as well, once it's published. I just want to thank you both so much for your time today, for everything that you've shared with us. It's been really, really interesting.
Thank you.
And yes, it's been really inspiring as well. And I'm sure our listeners will agree. So we're going to wrap it up for today. Thank you once again, everyone who's listening. And don't forget to follow and share the video as well. And feel free to drop us as well an email with any questions or any comments that you have. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Irene and Victoria.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.